Thank you all so much. Thank you so much, Wendy's, for the opportunity to be able to be here and to stand here and talk about something that is extremely important to me: parenting, education, raising children. And so before we go ahead, of course, I have two amazing speakers who are going to be here with me today. And these women are people that I admire, right? I've admired them from afar, and now I've admired them from right beside me. But you know, the thing about this session is it affects every single one of us. Even if you don't have kids yet, even if your children are much older, it's a topic that every single one of us connects to. You have cousins. You have neighbors that have children. It takes a village, they have said. But these days, the village has gotten digital, right? It has crossed boundaries in ways that we can't even begin to imagine. When I was growing up, I had paperback books. My daughter, my children these days, that's where they're learning. And their lecture notes, it's adaptive. Every single thing is different. And so I want to encourage you in this particular session to please be interactive. I know we have our online audience, and you need to interact with us as well. But those of us in this room, please ask questions. Please connect. We're going to ask you questions, and we expect you to answer as well. So without much ado, I will introduce my very first speaker. And her name is Fina. Now, she's going to introduce herself, right? But let's the lady in green, let's welcome her as she comes on stage. Yeah, her name is Fina Chichi Ikeji. Please have a seat. She is a consultant. And she's not just any consultant, right? She is a parenting consultant. And not just that. So she's not only dealing with the moms or the dads, she's dealing with both. And the one thing I really love about the work that she does is she doesn't leave it with the parents. She also interacts with the teenagers. So please give Fina another round of applause.
My name and a couple AMGs on your allocation. Put your ID in my navigation. She your belly got my validation.
Now our next speaker, again, just like Fina, honestly needs no introduction. So let us give a resounding applause to Yeti Williams as she comes up on stage. And guys, you need to look at her shoes as she comes on stage, please. Yes, I had to put you on the spot. Now, Yeti Williams, yes, that's fine. Yeti Williams is a social entrepreneur, and she's a digital parenting coach. So we have, honestly, the best of both worlds. We have me and you in the house digging it out. And then we have me and you online digging it out. And so before we go on, let me just give you a wrap, just show you how we're going to run this session. So we're going to start with Fina. Fina will introduce herself, and she will talk to you about what she does so that she creates a connection with you. And you can begin to write down the questions that you have for her. Then we will move the mantle, or the mic, to Yeti. And Yeti will also take us through what it is that she does, right? Again, giving you an avenue to connect with her. Afterwards, we will then go into the question and answer sessions, and I have a lot of questions. All right, but most importantly, I need you to connect by asking us questions. Fina, please go ahead. You can stand, it's fine.
So hi everyone, and thank you so much for this opportunity. Last year was actually my first year being here, and I remember sitting somewhere in the hall there, and to be here today to actually be speaking on a subject that I am so passionate about is very beautiful. So I want to say thank you to all the leaders of Wendy's. I'm Fina. I am Fina Chichi Ikeji, and I call myself phenomenal. So that's what I say to myself. I used to be shy before, but nowadays I embrace who I am. I have come to realize that the power of parenting is beyond this world. We've not even started touching a bit of it yet. You see, we are all businesswomen and men, they're here, and we're doing great things in our careers, in our businesses. But guess what? If we're not sorted at home, if our children are not sorted at home, we're not going to be able to embrace the big things that we're doing in our careers. So this topic on parenting is very, very valuable. I coach parents. I teach parents about the value of relationships. I'm always talking, I have a motto that I always talk about, relationship over rules. Because we tend to focus a lot about rules, but there's something about relationships that is very, very important. Because as our children are growing, the roles are going to change. But guess what? What will not change is the relationship. And so that's why I am very, very passionate about us nurturing that relationship. And us on learning. There's a quote that I love to share, and it's by Alvin Toffler. I don't even think Alvin Toffler had parents in mind, but the day I grabbed that quote, I've been using that quote as if it's mine, but it's not mine. And Alvin Toffler says, the illiterates of the 21st century, they're not going to be those who cannot read or write. No. The illiterates of the 21st century are going to be those who are unwilling to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And that's what parenting is about. There is continuous learning, unlearning, and relearning. And that's my job as a parent consultant. That's my job as a teens coach as well, teaching us how to keep on learning in this journey. We've heard from speakers who have talked about adapting to changes. If we can't leave parenting behind, we can't stay in the 18th century of parenting and expect to succeed in today's world. Our children have loads of voices to contend with. We cannot afford to say, well, you know, I got this and I turned out okay. No, we want our children to turn out more than okay. Okay is not enough. Okay is not enough. And everything that we learn here in this amazing platform, think about it. How do you exemplify that to your children? I was taking notes, and in a lot of the notes, when they say something about leaders, I'm talking parents. How are we going to exemplify this to our children? How are our children going to get up and succeed in any countries where they are? How are they going to be resilient? And that's why we're talking today about resilient parenting. We've got to model resilience. And there's something about resilience I just want to touch on. Because when we talk about resilience, resilience is about being able to get up, being able to rise up from our challenges. How do you treat your children when they make mistakes? We don't treat them well. We're embarrassed about their mistakes. And so we yell at them, we criticize them, we compare them. Where will they have the time to rise up from that mistake when all we're doing is bringing them down? So I want us, as we speak today on resilient parenting, for you to think through, how do you exemplify resilience in your homes? It's going to start with how you treat your children, how you talk to your children, how you model your own resilience to them, how you speak to them about resilience. These are the key things that we want to really bring to our attention. Because our children, and I'm a Christian, our children are made for signs and wonders. And so we need to start from somewhere and start to parent differently. I talk about daring to parent differently. We've got to parent differently. Because this next generation of children that we have, they're going to conquer mountains. But it starts with us. It starts with you and I. Whether you're a parent to be, or parent would be, it starts with us. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't know, is it the teacher in me that makes me always stand up? Let me sit. Yep. Okay, so Fina has said quite a number of things, and I would push those, that summary to question, but there's just questions she just asked. Can you dare to do differently when it comes to the arena of parenting? So that's a question I want us to ponder, even as we hand over to Yeti. Yeti, you start.
There's a standing thing going on.
I think so.
Can you all hear me? Hello, everybody. My name is Yeti Williams. I'm really glad to be here. I have been famsing with Wimbiz for, many years. What I do, so I call myself a social entrepreneur, a digital parenting coach. And the reason I call myself a digital parenting coach is because about 10 years ago was when I started Lagos Moms. And I started it when I was a new mom. I had a toddler, I had a baby. I had just moved back to Nigeria from the US. And I had a lot of questions about parenting. And there wasn't a lot of information for me as a mother in Lagos, Nigeria. So I thought, I'm sure there are other women that have questions that perhaps I do. Why don't I create a community for that? However, I didn't recognize that digital would do what it has done to our lives then. So I say, there's a popular quote that says it takes a village to raise a child. I say it takes an e-village to raise a child today. It takes an e-village to raise a family today. And we here are the last generation who have one leg in analog and one leg in digital, right? So that means how we were raised, we cannot use the same script. It doesn't mean values need to be tossed out the door. However, we need to adapt to the world that we live in today. The future, we don't even know it. Research shows that a lot of children today, the jobs they will take, haven't been created. So we're not raising children for a world that we knew. We're raising them for a world that we don't even know what it's going to be. However, that does not mean we can parent from a place of fear, and that's what I really bring into my practice when I work with parents. Is digital parenting needs something different. We have to unlearn, we have to relearn. We didn't grow up on the streets of social media, right? So to you, it might mean nothing when your child posts something on social media and nobody likes it. You might say, what's wrong with you? Please, is that what's disturbing you? You know what I mean? In my days, we didn't have lights. Please. There is a level of empathy that comes into parenting today. And I use 3 pillars generally to work with parents. We need to be educated about the world we live in. It's different. It's not about judgment. It's not about whether you like it or not. It's the world we live in today. Our children didn't ask for this world. Some teenagers have told me, parents judge us so much. But we didn't choose this social media world that we're having to live in. We didn't choose it. The second pillar is empower. When we're educated about what we're dealing with, then we're empowered to make the right choices, to raise our children to thrive in the world that they're living in today. And then lastly, empathy. Empathy means realizing that you were a teenager before. How many people here, when you were 15, 16 years old, had virtual friends? Please let me see a show of hands. We are seeing the dinosaurs on this side of the room. No, but really, you have to come from a place of empathy. Imagine when you were dating, when you were younger. People broke up with you online. Do you see what I mean? So we can't afford to say how we were raised is how we raise our children. So I summarize that to say that we're talking about resilience. Resilience many times is tested when you face challenges. That is when you know whether or not you are resilient. And then I want to add the last layer, which is when you have relocated. Hello. Hi. There's one thing about being abroad. When I left Nigeria at 16 to go to university, lived in the US for about 10 years before I moved back to Nigeria. I have now relocated to the UK. Well, I've never lived here before, but I live in the UK now. And can I tell you that the difference is differencing. Raising children or having a family abroad when you are older is a different kettle of what? Is it even fish? How many? You know what I mean? So really, I hope we have fun with this conversation, but the reality is that parenting is so different. But I love to empower parents to say it doesn't mean it's impossible to win. But when you're educated, when you understand what's going on, you empower yourself, empower your children from a place of empathy. Thank you.
Fantastic. Please give both our amazing speakers, Fina and Yeti, a resounding round of applause. And that is so true, right? When you go and visit, when you see things online, and we are looking for the gold on the streets of London, when we move here, it is not the truth, and same thing with parenting. I mean, just give me a minute, let me. Yeah. So when my kids came here to school, and after about a year of living in Nigeria, I said to myself, Auntie, pack your load. Because it was very different. It was totally different. The things they were asking of me, I couldn't relate. I didn't get it, right? So it took me moving here to really understand it. And guess what? That comes with its own kettle of shrimps, can we say, this time around. So I'm going to move to Fina at this time. And remember, if you have questions, please raise your hand. I'm a teacher. I can see everybody in the room. Okay, I have eyes around my head, all right? So please raise your hands. So let me go to Fina. Technology. I'm struggling. Yeah, so the first question that I really do have for Fina, and I've been thinking about this even when we were at lunch, right? We have talked about, and Yeti talked about that as well, adapting. How, because you are a teenage coach, and I think it's really important that we sort of look at that. I mean, when I was a teen, I wasn't of Earth anymore. I think I was of another planet entirely. And so there are a lot, I don't know, are your teenagers like that? You're wondering, are you human? You know, they're totally different. In your experience working with teenagers and their parents, what are the adaptive mindsets that parents need to begin to imbibe? Not just say that they have it, but they actually live it to ensure that they have a relationship that works with these teenagers?
Very, very good question. I think one of the things that we need to start with is when we think about, because parenting is all about, the model of parenting that we all parent is from what we saw growing up. You know, we default to what we saw growing up. And so one of the things that, the first thing that I would say with parents is, look back to your childhood. Look back to how you were parented. And this is not to discount your parents, because every parent did what they knew to do. So we're not going back so that we then criticize our parents. Our parents lived in a survival era. It was all about survival. I'll go to work, you've got food on the table, you've got a roof over your shoulders. That was one of their main things. So we need to look back at how we were parented. How did you feel when your parents shouted at you? How did you feel? Not what did you do wrong. How did you feel? How did you feel when your dad insulted you? How did you feel when your teachers flogged you? How did you feel? That feeling, take it on and see that your child today will feel the same way. So that's the first thing. So we're going back to our childhood, not to criticize our parents. We're going back to our childhood to see what was wrong, what was right, take the right ones, and leave the wrong ones behind. Because I cracked a joke one day and I said, our forefathers are in their graves thinking, my children, please, get on with today's generation. Stop sitting back to our generation. The world is moving. So it's going back to our childhood to say, what didn't we like? And start doing what we did, what we would want to do better. That's the way to adapt. Because we've got to learn that a lot of parents defend how they will grow up, how they grow up. I turned out okay. Yes, they flogged me. I turned out okay. But it's not about that. We need to come out from that. And it's not that you're being ungrateful to your parents. I talked to my mom about how we grew up, but not in a, oh, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that. You know, but it's about, now she's learning so that she can treat the young, her grandchildren, and say things in a different way. So adapting is going back to our childhood, because that's where our parenting starts from. And once we can do that, we can then continue to learn. You know, parenting is about learning. Sometimes people think parenting is, oh, I had my child, I know everything about my child. Okay, there's a point there, but there's more to do with learning. We are all still learning. My daughter just turned 18 earlier on in the year. I'm learning to parent an 18-year-old. It's a new journey. I can't say too many things anymore. I might have to think, what do you see? What do you think? It's different. My 21-year-old as well, it's different. So we've got to learn that as our children are growing, yes, we're still their parents, we're still their moms, but it's a different type of relationship. And if we can do that, our children see that. That's when your influence is stronger, because you've respected their growth. So you've got to respect their growth as well in this adapting process. Yeah.
Fantastic. I love that. I love that. And as Fina was speaking, yes, please, round of applause. Oh, you have a question. Okay. So we have the first question before we come to you, Yeti. Can we help with the mic?
I'm Aisha Ahmad. I'm a trustee. I think two things. I think a lot of us will agree that parenting never ends, because I have older kids, so they're in their 20s, so it never ends. So your kids might be in their teens and you think, okay, you know, it's going to be over when they get into uni, but that is not actually true. I agree that we are living in this digital age with all the pressures that come with it and all of that. For some of us, we are not, say, digital what did you call us? Dinosaurs? So I want to take the conversation to another level. For some of us, we are not quite in a different world from our kids. So the questions I have for you are more around taking things to the next level. First one, cultural, retaining your cultures. Because a lot of the kids are abroad. They're not likely to come back home. How do you keep the family unit? How do you keep them connected to your culture? Some of them have lived in all of these other economies. And, from time to time, I have to remind them, this is not your culture. They just say, okay, I've heard. That's the first one. And the second is, how do you continue to influence them in their strategic choices? So you're not quite out of their world, but they still see you as something else. So there's nothing you really tell them that they even listen. It's almost like, and you know inside you that this thing I'm telling you is the correct thing. But so how do you actually connect? Thank you.
I love, let's give her a round of applause. Those are very relevant questions yesterday, today, and dare I say tomorrow. And so we're going to move the questions to Fina, but Yeti, I would really love you to weigh in on it as well. So Fina, please start. If you can just give it very short.
I will talk the cultural one. We live in a day and age where our children are actually seeking for their roots. They may do a bit of, I'm British, I'm American, but their roots, knowledge of their roots is actually very important. So the thing about them and their culture is we talk to them about our culture let's brag about our culture. Because now they're getting more interested. Before, they didn't, because you see something, our children are living in two cultures. There's our own culture at home. They go out to school, it's a different culture out there. So they're actually struggling between two cultures. So we've got to respect that balance that they've got that we don't really have, because we are Nigerians, we know where we come from. Culture is about them embracing what are the great things about our culture, gisting about them at home. Yeah, and now with all the things like Afrobeats and stuff, it's bringing our culture back in. So we can use that route to actually talk more about our culture. Because you can see now many guys, my 21-year-old, they're now more interested in Afrobeats. They want to know what's going on. Oh, Mom, when are we going to go to Lagos? These are kind of things that it's piquing their interests. So what we now need to do is talk to them about our culture, but not in a forceful way. And when I say in a forceful way, like, for example, if you're saying things like, oh, you come from there, that's your home, no matter where you are, they'll just be like, okay, what's she talking about? What are they talking about? So just brag about the good things. Like, we just came back from Nigeria, and all I've been doing at home is bragging about Nigeria, bragging about the things that have changed, the thing. So we want, and it's like seeds. We're just going to be dropping seeds about our culture, and they'll get it. Because it's something that they're bragging about now. They want to know more about their culture. So that's what I would say about culture. Yeah.
Fantastic. Does that answer your question? Yeah? Okay. Yeti. So before you go on, let me just quickly ask a question, and I'm hoping that you sort of tie it all together. You said something that I thought was very important. You talked about, and this actually flowed from when Fina was speaking. You talked about adaptations, but as Fina was speaking about what really happens out there, and maybe us not really connecting, because that's not how we grew up, And what came to me was, do we react based on our fears, which again are founded on our conditioning, right? Because there is some level of conditioning. And again, from what we hear in the media. And so that, in a sense, not only conditions us on top of our condition, but it just makes it a really difficult place to navigate, right, Yeti? So when you think about it, and we keep talking about this social media, get your kids off social media. Oh, it's not a great thing, it's a good place, how much of it is motivated by fear? And what should parents really be looking at? Because there's some children who are already on social media anyway. What is it that parents should be doing, right? And how will they really guide their children? Just again, to flow from the question that Madame asked, into the right path, really. And maybe sometimes there's no right and there's no wrong. It is what is happening right now that is relevant. So what sort of advice would you give to parents to sort of navigate this space that is not founded on fear?
How long do we have? No, but really, when we talk about culture, I always ask, what is culture? Culture changes. Culture means different things to different people at different times. A lot of our children who've been taken out of Nigeria and brought to school abroad for whatever reason, a lot of them are masking. That means when they go to school, they have to be a certain way from 9 to 3 o'clock, right? They leave school. If they are day students, they go home. Mom and dad are like, this is Nigeria. When you get here, leave all of those things they've told you outside. So they come home and they're kind of masking again, like, all right, what I've been exposed to from 9 to 3 doesn't work here. All right, let me shift into what mom and dad think is Nigerian, right? Then there's a third switch that typically happens, which is when they get lost in social media world. There's a culture on social media. There's a culture on social media. And guess what? The culture on social media is borderless, and I dare say a bit more concerning than whether or not we feel that our children are holding on to our culture. I don't know that culture has a definition anymore. It's a bit, people might be like, what do you mean? Well, it depends. I like Afrobeats, but there are certain things I don't agree with the Afrobeats culture, right? The songs are nice, but do you listen to those lyrics? What they are doing in those videos, I'm like, hello. So I don't know if I'm answering, I think I'm making it a bit more dicey, but I really think we have to recognize that our children are masking a lot because they are, what do they call them now? Is it 3 culture, 3 generation? They're in many, many different spaces at the same time. Now, I haven't talked about the children in boarding. They are not even ending their masking at 3 o'clock. They are masking for as long as they are in school until exit, until midterm, until summer. When summer happens or midterm, not all of them get to go home. Not all of them have parents that come to help to reset them. Some of them are spending time in somebody's house, on their couch. Do you know what I mean? So my point is, you know, when I talked about my pillars, I said educate, empower, then empathize. If we look at empathy, we will recognize that our children are doing a lot of switching that they didn't ask for. Who here has a child that said, Mom, Dad, I want to go to school abroad? Or Mom, Dad, I want us to move to the UK? Show of hands. We brought them. So at the same time, we can't then confuse them by saying, do not forget that this is not your culture. I hope we're together. I'm not saying we should take everything that's here. Of course not. But we have to recognize that our children, a lot of them are struggling because, I will use that word again, they are masking. They're having to fit into roles depending on the room they enter. And then they have their parents, the love, who many times are telling them, this is not our culture, don't forget where we're from. But every time we say that, we should remember what are we talking about. And let's be very clear on what those cultures are that we want. Respect, right? You know, talking to each other with a level of accord. Not feeling that you are now so foreign, you don't want to go back to Nigeria again. But once again, guess who has the power? It's the parents. I'm not saying it's not expensive, but how many children get to go home and spend time there? I dare say that on summer holidays, if we can get to that point, it will be great if we can start to take our children en masse to go back home. Let them go and spend time at home. Go to an office there where, guess what? You don't think about whether you're black or not. You're just in an office with everybody who looks like you, who can pronounce your name. You're not thinking, you know, just call me Paul, even though your name is Peteru. Right? So, when it comes to culture, I really always go from a place and a heart of empathy. Let me understand what I'm facing. What are the children struggling with? When you talk about social media, I'm not about whether it's good or bad. It's good and bad. It's about the quality of what you're consuming online. A child would tend to gravitate to what they like in person online. And by the way, algorithms are radicalizing our children. I'm going to say that again. This is not about fear. It's about what? Education. When we know algorithms are radicalizing our children, what does that mean? If a child, whether from interest, curiosity, or by mistake, should land on something on social media, what does that social media platform do more of? It sends them more of that stuff. So their worldview, you might be a Nigerian parent raising a child in Ikeja GRA, but your child's culture is more foreign than the American. So I'll leave it there to say I really want us to really be thinking, what does it mean, and how do we measure as a parent? Can we measure if we feel like our children are losing culture or not? Do we know what that looks like? So.
Wow. Wow. There's a lot to unpack. A lot. But as Yeti was speaking, I found tears coming to my eyes, especially when she spoke about masking. Because there are times where you don't even realize that your child is masking. And then you're wondering, how do I even support my child through this? Yeah. Yes. And so I'm going to come to you, Fina, and talking about emotional toolkits. As a parent, what should be in our emotional toolkit, right? And I would just like you to speak to that. I'm like that.
I want to give you a hug, but it's very important, and this emotional toolkit is going to be connected to the question that you asked on influence. Emotions are the key. Getting our emotion right is the key to getting our children. Our children are looking for emotional safety. That's what they're looking for. And one of the first things about emotional safety is being able to listen to our children. Have you heard your child tell you, Mom, you never listen? That even happened to me some years ago. And I was like, oh, I'm a parent. Go, child, can I not listen? But no. But let me tell you something. That's the number one tool. When we can listen to our children in a way that they understand. I asked my daughter some years ago, how do you know I'm listening to you? And she says, you nod your head when you're listening to me. So I started nodding my head more and more when I'm listening to her. But I asked my son, he's now 21, I said, how do you know I'm listening to you? He says, every time me and you are talking, you kind of repeat what I'm saying. So you're reiterating what I'm saying. That's how he knows that I'm listening to him. So guess what? When I'm talking to my son, I'm listening and then I'm reiterating back because that's how he understands that I'm listening. And then you connect with them emotionally on that. When they tell you, oh, Mom, oh, Dad, I'm feeling very sad today, don't dismiss them. Don't say, oh, you're not paying bills. Why are you feeling sad? That masking you just talked about is part of why they can be feeling sad. They're drained. They're drained from masking. So they feel sad. So what we need to learn to do is validate their emotions. And honestly speaking, we didn't see that growing up. So it's something we're learning. So when we talk about validating their emotions, they come to you, they say, oh, Mom, my friend did not share her lunch with me, or just something so minor. So listen to them. Oh, I hear you. Oh, that would have been very sad. Oh, acknowledge it. You've gotten their attention by acknowledging it. You've created that safety by acknowledging it. They can then share their emotions with you because you've acknowledged. Those little things, they may look little to us, but to them they're big. So even the kids in university that they're worried about what kind of friends they're going to make, all these kind of things that for us, because we've been there, done that, we think it's no big deal. To them, it's a big deal. So listening, validating their emotions, and just being present with them. When they tell you of things that is worrying them, listen to them. Don't dismiss them. And if they come to you to say, Mom, you never listen, please don't defend yourselves. Tell them, how can I listen better? Ask them that question, how can I listen better? And the answers they give you, start to do that more and more of. I know, but the reason they don't listen, can I be honest with you? We've not modeled it to them. We haven't modeled it in the right way to them. And so if we can model it to them and talk to them that, this is what I'm doing by listening to you, they will do the same thing. It's about modeling. So those are the three main things that I will talk about in terms of emotional toolkit. We all need to learn it. And I think we learn it at work, but we don't bring it to the home fronts. Because I remember coaching a dad, and I was talking about listening. He says, oh, Fina, but this is something I do with my team at work. How come I don't do it with my two sons at home? And I said, that's the point. So let's bring these skills that we're learning in our careers, in our workplaces, these interpersonal skills that we're learning, Let's bring them to the home front and practice it with our children, because that's how they're going to learn. And that's what will fill up that emotional toolkits that they need. Thank you.
Fantastic. We're out of time, but before we go off, please, I'd just like Yeti to speak to resilient parenting and what that does in today's world, especially in terms of moving to the next level. And then we will wrap up. Yep.
So I don't know if you've heard this term called VUCAD. It stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, diverse, and I've added another D, digital. That's the world we live in. We also all haven't fully recovered from COVID and what it did to us. People talk about Gen Alpha, they are what, about 6 and under. They are just different. And if you think about the percentage of their lives that they spent stuck at home, you realize how developmentally shifting that was for them in their developmental milestones. So a lot of them have gone to school and started school, and they don't have some of the skills that children before COVID had. Now, let's move it and not think it's just the younger ones. Primary school children, secondary school children, university children, some of them miss their graduation. Some of them, there's so much going on that when we talk about resilient parenting, it's about recognizing we're all in this world together. It's not like the news they see is different from the news we see. However, they don't yet have all the capabilities, right, to be able to make sense of this uncertainty we're all living in daily. They see news all the time. Oh, the future will never be as good as it was for their parents. Oh, they can't afford to buy houses the way their parents. That is the world they live in. It is really difficult. If anybody had an answer to all of this now, that person, I don't know, trillionaire, multiple. But the point is, jokes apart, resilience is something that we can only test when we face challenges. And we're able to say, how did we come out of that? Am I doing better? Am I thriving? Am I struggling? Where exactly am I as a parent? Because if as a parent, you are not whole, your mental health is not in a solid state, you can't give what you don't have. And parenting is not something that ever gets a chance to take a break. It's 24/7. It's round the clock. No matter how you are feeling, if your child needs you, they're going to come and look for you, and they need you to help them. And how you respond in that moment can make all the difference between whether or not they feel I can come to you again, and you lose that privilege. I call it a privilege because today our children don't need us for knowledge. They need us for context. The knowledge is out there online. It's simple. In fact, it's not Google again. You know, the other day my husband gave my son an article to read about Kamla and, you know, how she got where she got to, and he wants to get his perspective on it. We were in the car together at the back. My son went to ChatGPT and said, summarize this. Literally, summarize this article for me. I hope nobody is watching because he was doing like this, don't tell him. So he now said, oh yeah, that's a very interesting article. In fact, he now gave him the summary. So my husband was like, wow, okay, that's really good. But no, really, I think one of the last things I'll leave is, I know it's a very volatile world, it's uncertain, we don't know where the future is headed, we're all concerned. If you've moved to the UK, we've just started a Lagos Moms UK group, we're about 1,000 on that group on WhatsApp, and we see what the challenges are. However, to take advantage of the opportunities in the lands that we've come to, we have to recognize, first of all, we can't forget where we're from, but we have to be willing to unlearn. We have to be willing to learn. We have to be able to check. Resilience is a work in progress. Hello? It is a work in progress. It's not a destination that when you get here, you say, now I'm resilient, I figured it all out. So please, just do like this to yourself. Let's just
Self-compassion.
hug ourselves, empathy, kindness. We're figuring this all out together. So thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, ladies.
You're welcome. Thank you so
Do you have a
much.
final word or sentence? Nothing?
I would
You
just say, just keep embracing learning and don't be hard on yourselves, because
Yeah.
we're all doing the best work that we know to do.
Fantastic.
But you're here today, you're learning and relearning, and that's the best thing. So you're all amazing. Thank you.
Fabulous. Yeti, final word?
Please don't be scared of digital world. It is here to stay, but we can embrace it together. Just as junk food, if somebody ate donuts every day or only rice, they would have a medical condition.
Yes.
It's the same way with content online. What are we consuming? How is it affecting our children? And can we consume the content they are engaging with online with them? when we do it with them, as much as possible, we're able to get a sense of if it's affecting them negatively or if it's affecting them positively. Then you have a chance to step in. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I will wrap up with something Adeola Aziz said. She said there's no place called there. Right? So when it comes to this parenting journey, there's no place called there. There's no destination. Right? You can't arrive at it because your children change. They're constantly changing. And we need to be supportive of where they are as we guide them to where they want to be. Somebody's asking, can I take a question? Yes? Okay. Please, go ahead. Yes. Oh, thankfully.
Well, good afternoon. I mean, it's already evening. It's a great privilege to be here, and I'm particularly happy about what is going on up there. She was pushing me to ask Crystal because I happen to be a mother to somebody who's popular on the social media, and that's Eniolua official. So she and we were talking, and we were sharing ideas about the realization of the digital media and being there for the children. Well, the fact is that the digital media has become part of us, and there's nothing, absolutely nothing, anybody can do about it. It's our world now, and that led me to write so many papers on the digital media, and then talking about having your children being present on the social media, and then being there because it's the world now. And that will bring me to my sisters talking about the empathy, the emotional part of it. And that is the aspect that I've been using, being available. You know, I really wouldn't see myself coming to dance on the social media. But because any Oluwa will go dancing, and then you see a lot of people criticizing him. I'm a pastor who had been a very conservative person, but I didn't have any choice than to go and dance Ijola Balaba, give me your hand and shoulder. You know, not because I wanted to get popular, but because I don't want to lose my son. I want to be there for him. I still want to go back to his bed and lie down. I flew in from Nigeria yesterday, and before I came in, I was in his house, and with his older brother is a lawyer. And we had to sleep on the bed, roll on the bed, roll on the floor, so I can get his heart. I can still talk to him. He can still realize mommy is dead. Somebody in the world, in court, is not taking him away from me and becoming the mother in the social media. Yeah, I can have that. But deep, deep down, we have to be available. So that will bring us to availability. We need to be emotionally, physically available for our children. And the digital media still helps us to be available digitally. You know, even for the home, as I was here, we were chatting. I was doing video calls. I could see his expression. And not him alone, I have 3 boys. And he has to be the most subtle out of them, her. And so, yeah, people take it against him. But I don't really care. Because I remember there was a red flag that went around recently about tagging him. And somebody called me and said, oh, around 12 midnight, my blood pressure went to 149/100. I'd never had it like that. But I called him, we spoke, and he said, Mom, it's not me. And I knew it wasn't him. So by the time the whole world was turning upside down, I had my peace. And the father too called and said, any alpha? I said, so we have the peace. And so the bond of unity in the home, the prayer section, the love, the cordiality, we're not losing it into the social media. That's
Fantastic.
my...
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. One more? No, they said, she said we should.
One more question, then we are done. Okay, thank you so much. I'm Benita Folabi. I'm a maritime entrepreneur. This section was one I was looking up to listening because I don't know how Yeti is just comfortable. you move to UK and you're just comfortable with the children. Fina was just making it look like it's a piece of cake. But for me, it's been 1 week of fear. I arrived the UK on Tuesday, and the intention coming from Nigeria was to relocate here. I was bringing my business here, so I needed to come with my kids. But I'll tell you, I've been sick, not knowing the cause of my ailment. And they said it's anxiety, they said it's fear. I think it's fear of the unknown. I've once lived in the US, and there was comfort. Maybe because they were still babies, but now I have 7 and 11. And over the night, 1,000, almost over hundreds of under 15 years old children behind the window. I don't know what the kind of party they said they were having. And I said, is this what we are coming to? The fear came again. And I told my husband, please return tickets for September. I joke not. I said, return tickets for September. And he was like, again, are we back going to Nigeria? So Yeti and Fino, I'll be looking up to God and you. Because the way you people just make it sound. My host daughter was telling me at 11:30 p.m., I think an ambulance came for a sick person. They felt it was the police, and they were scattered everywhere. I was just showing the video to the person sitting beside me. And, she told me, Auntie, no more money, eh?
Around, ladies.
Okay.
I think this is a big clue. I think we should have a session, a whole day on parenting.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's a lot to talk about, and
Yeah.
obviously we have another session coming up. So unfortunately, we can't take any more questions, guys.